right, I got 6:02. We'll go ahead and get the May 2nd public safety meeting underway. We start with a roll call. Chief Spain.
Here.
Sarah Cole.
Here.
Julie Edwards. Sean Martz. May Hall. Tim Morris.
Yes.
Sonny Morris.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to public body comment. Public body comment. Yes, ma'am?
My name's Mary Jo Frey, and I've worked here in the courthouse for 26 years. And I just have a request of something that you guys could look into sometime about the air quality in this courthouse. There's 2 employees that work in our office. They can breathe fine when they're at home. As soon as they come in and start working, they start coughing, sniffling, taking allergy medicine, that type of thing. We just wondered if the air quality could be tested, if there was anything we could do as far as getting like air purifiers in each of the offices, or I had talked to the sheriff about it and maybe one other board member, I can't remember, but I thought, well, if I come that way, you guys would all be aware, and we would appreciate it if it's something you guys could look into for us.
Sure. I can talk to you, Sheriff.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any part of that that's part of this window thing?
Yeah, I think that there has to be some other, well, I think it's some abatement, some other issues that have to be tested. And I think that the air is part of that process as well. And I know that they were in town, and other sheriffs can give an update on that process here a little bit as well.
Okay.
And
Thank
one
you.
other question. How long and what floors, can I ask, has this been an issue?
One of the employees has been there 2 years, the other one about a year. But they do have, like, one of them does have, like, breathing issues,
Sure.
Anyway, so, and that doesn't help. But like she says, when she's at home,
Sure.
for the most part, she feels fine. It's when she comes in here each day and starts breathing. And we've heard other comments when you walk into the building, that there could be the smell of mold, that type of thing. And I know it's an old building, that's gonna happen, but
So
we
is
just
this
feel
a,
like maybe if there could be something done for each office as far as having like an air purifier.
is this a new thing, or has this been going on for a year or 2 years? I'm not questioning it, I'm just trying to gather more information from you while you're...
I would say it's been longer than a couple of years.
Okay.
It's just, different people have different health situations, so
Okay.
it affects them maybe worse than what it would somebody
Understood.
that, isn't used to that, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Public body comment. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to new committee members. My name is Stan Shuddy. I've lived in Shelby County all my life. My wife and I live in the Sturtson area. We raised our family with 17 grandkids. 14 of them are still in Shelby County, so I think you could safe to say we're invested in Shelby County. But anyway, the reason I'm here, which I've been here several times before, is if you've been living under a rock, if not been living under a rock, you see what's going on the southern border. We're being invaded. It's not an immigration problem, but it's invasion. Somewhat at the northern border too. But anyway, what I've been working on a resolution that states that Shelby County wouldn't incur any expenses for illegal immigrants. And I had reached out to the outgoing state's attorney, and he referred me to Moultrie County, which they passed. They passed a similar one, so I just used theirs and drafted it and put in Shelby County. I planned on presenting it tonight, but I was directed to wait on you guys seat a new state's attorney, and then I'd bring it to the board. The sheriff has a copy of it, so if you want to see it, I didn't bring it with me, but the sheriff has it, so if you want to see it. But I deeply think it's a public safety concern. I mean, if you look at the news where they've been, whether it be Chicago, New York, or even other smaller towns. So I think it's something we need to look at. So, and I just wanted to introduce myself to the new board or new committee and the chairman yourself. So I'll be back whenever you guys get somebody set in for a state's attorney. So So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank
If you have
you.
any questions, I'll entertain them now, otherwise.
Sure, and what I just passed out was a copy of what the sheriff forwarded me. And so-
Okay, so you already got it.
So I got a copy, I didn't have a copy, to get in advance to circulate to the committee.
Right.
Run through any discussion with anybody, and so, but I did get a copy and just didn't make it to the agenda.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Public body comment. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, I just wanted to welcome the new people onto the committee and wanted to say how thankful I am that the dive team's back and for you working together to accomplish that. I don't know how that came about, and I don't care how that came about. I'm just glad that we have our team getting ready to get back protecting the lake. I'm also glad about the forward progress on the windows. So, you know, I'm hoping that it's good to see changes sometimes when things aren't going quite like they should. Sometimes you need to mix things up a bit. So I think having a new committee and mixing things up again will be a good thing. And then my next comment, I want to say how important it is to support your people. The dive team is our team, our county team. And whether people are negative, which, you know, people have a right to say what they want to say. But I hope as board members, you support your team. And if you can't do that, then at least be silent. And if you have an issue, handle an executive session. So that way it's not blown up so publicly. Because they're professionals. We all should be professionals in how we talk to each other and how we treat each other. So that's my wish for this committee, is that you show professionalism, and I believe you'll do that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Public body comment. Public body comment. Public body comment. Thank you. We will move on to discussion about dive team resolution. I sent it out to everybody. I do have a copy here if anybody would like to have it passed around. We did pass one here not long ago after discussion with Mr. Pritchard, the dive team, and then some other surrounding dive team experts. We were just trying to look at ways to maybe pare it down just a little bit. And so for the sake of this evening, I just wanted to see if there was any further discussion on this, and then maybe over the course of the next 30 days or so, we can, you know, come to an agreement, get something else passed on this, maybe streamline it down a little bit, and then move forward with the rest of the board on this. So open it up for discussion.
Is this the one that the board passed then?
I'm sorry, so that's the SOPs.
Okay.
The resolution is, it's one page, so if you need, I can send you a copy of mine.
No, I got it. I did the right thing.
Yeah, we'll get to the SOP, SOG that Mr. Pritchard brought in a little bit. And again, this is a framework.
I thought it all looked good. You guys have worked on it, I thought it all looked good.
See if there's additions or subtractions or amendments or adjustments, say, over the next month, we can work on that. You want a copy that doesn't require you to squint?
No,
Okay.
I got blind glasses, I don't think so. Has legal counsel looked at that, or would
No.
not wait till
No.
this early?
No, I didn't have any, there was no intent to pass this or, you know, do any voting on it tonight anyway. And then now with a possible change of legal counsel, we've got some time then to maybe run this through, so. And I will provide legal with a copy of the existing as well as the proposed. So there's a good comparison with both.
And Austin has gone on all this and.
Yes.
You guys have been this together. Do we need a motion to?
No, this is really just for discussion purposes. I just wanted to say, most of everything we have this evening is for discussion. Not a whole lot of action to be taken on anything, but like I said, I want to make sure we get everybody's input and put something forward that's workable.
Has the legal counsel of CIRMA read that? Means I understand it's in a draft state, so it becomes problematic to share. I get all that.
Right.
I'm just curious, because I know there was a lot of back and forth on the other two to get those to where, because there was some language that was not originally. One of the things that I would like to see in here that's not in here, that was in the other one, that on its face, it has the appearance of being restrictive, limiting, problematic to the dive team, to the commander. There are appearances that there's a desire that this committee has its thumb on all dive team actions. I understand that. And I'm more than happy to soften any of the language to get the point across that that's not what that's about. Much of, using your words, the stuff that in your opinion needs cleaned up, in my opinion, it is exhaustive to the point that it provides oversight from this committee for the commander, so that essentially his actions are not all on his back. So, as it was before, and one of the things that concerns me here is that if the commander were to do something or do a thing that would be scrutinized, it's all on his back. The Public Safety Committee hasn't heard those things, for example, the training. Just for example, the training regiment. So the training regiment on its face looks like, this committee needs to tell the commander what to do. The opposite is true. The commander needs to tell this committee what he's going to do, and then we approve that, so that if later on down the road there's some revelation that the thing that was done was in error, well, we approve that. So it's not all on his shoulders or the team's shoulders. We share the burden because we vetted that and we said that was okay. I want a resolution that provides the necessary coverages and protections, and I'm not just speaking only of insurance, speaking in terms of oversight. The word oversight can be classified as a negative word, and I don't want to use it as a negative word. I want it as a positive thing for the team, so that they're not called into question. This committee is called into question. If the dive team has done something that is questionable for any myriad of any reasons, not that it would or not that it has, but in the future something happens, and they were, we approve that. It wasn't just them being actors on their own, and I want that protection for them. I want to sit down and I want to have conversations where the language is appealing and fully understood by all parties, and I'm happy to do that. I wanted to share that, and I want to say that. And with as difficult in my mind and in my heart, what we have on paper today may not be what anybody or everybody wants. But I know that if any one of those men or women would have gotten hurt Sunday, they'd have been taken care of. And so the last thing I want to see is any cleanup take place that jeopardizes that in any way, shape, or form. If we need one sentence that says we have a dive team, and CIRMA will send us documentation that says, yep, you're good, I'm all in. So far, that hasn't been my experience, but I'm open to that possibility.
Sure. So with that, in coordination with a couple of other things on the agenda to include the SOP, SOGs, in my conversations with insurance was this establishes a framework. The protection mechanisms for policy, procedure, and the guidelines exist in that. So when that's approved by the board, this was a framework. This is how you work within that framework. So the example given in the insurance discussion was the hang up is anytime the phrase, within the terms and conditions of the policy.
Right.
And so when I specifically asked the question, terms and conditions, the feedback I got was it's gray, right? It's a wide area, but then an example was given that a dive team member went and took took their child on the boat. Something happened in that. They were not permitted to do so by the SOP, SOG. Therefore, they worked outside of the framework. The insurance then would not cover that incident. So, in my conversation, which leads this to be pared down a bit, which leads that to be much more robust, that is where they will determine this is the lanes that they were told that they had to work within, and if the violations take place from that is when things come into question.
So then the goal, if I'm understanding correctly, and the path might be that these are handshakes and need to be passed together.
Yes. Yes, that is.
So we need to have, we can have, and I'll use the word strip, just allow me that word, we can have a stripped down front and back, so 2-page resolution document, but it needs to be accompanied with a multi-page, essentially book of procedures and guidelines.
Yes, and I believe this even says that the team will have SOPs and SOGs approved by the board.
I would have to go back and review, but I don't recall where SOPs and SOGs were addressed and how they were addressed in the resolution we have passed. I can see that making sense.
Right. And so that's where we're trying to build this framework is it is in coordination with insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It is in coordination with the team, which are the bigger stakeholders here.
Sure.
And then in coordination with, they also now have their rules that they follow. Based on the discussion we had here recently, I did look up the difference between an SOP and an SOG, and it did make much more sense once I actually truly understood what those frameworks.
I had to do the same thing, so.
And so it made much more sense. I've gone through this quickly just because, it's been worked on, Austin's been working on this. And that's why there's no action to be taken.
Did you give me one of these some time ago? Is this the same document? Or is this?
That's been amended. There's been some more stuff added to it. It's a little more stringent.
I'll just, if we're all gonna start with this one, I'll just scrap whatever else I've got, and then it's not 4 anymore, is it? It's 5.
It's 5-2. And so, yes, I
And
guess.
that's far more palatable and understandable that, we could have a pared down, no frills resolution, if we have this. And I can.
And then and so again, that'll have your framework for
Right.
how things are operated on scene. That'll operate their training schedule. All of that is in there.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna make more work.
Well, fortunately, Mr. Pritchard's done a lot of the work for us on this part of it. So.
You're gonna have to stop with that Mr. stuff.
Any other discussion on this piece? Some of these conversations are going to overlap. If not, we'll move on to the dive team application, which also I sent out a copy of, and if anybody needs a copy to take a look at, I'll be happy to pass it around. Also pared down a bit, skinny down a little bit, just for what was considered to be the most pertinent information for command staff to make a decision on bringing on a team member.
Yeah, can I ask where does this come from?
Austin, Mr. Preacher.
Oh, is this, did you create, or did you have, or did you create?
We've had a pretty basic application that
Okay.
we've used for 20-some years that
Okay.
This is just
I
an
hadn't
advanced
seen
version.
it. I hadn't seen anything like this before, that's why I was asking the question. So, I don't think, literally, there's anything to question at all about page 1. That's all straightforward stuff. Nothing I haven't seen on anything else. Honestly, it looks similar to some that I filled, except for the disclaimer. And I'm just curious where we would derive the authority to charge back, I guess essentially is what, I understand. Training is very challenging, et cetera, and then, we're essentially asking a new volunteer, we'll provide free training, but if you don't stick around for a period of time, I'm just wondering where, A, what formula was used, B, do we have the authority to do that? C, what's the likelihood of recuperating any of those funds?
Yep, don't know the answer to all those. That's why this is a process for all that. But again, a lot of this was taken from guidelines from neighboring communities that established it. I haven't asked those questions yet. I'm just, rather than try to push things too quickly, I want to have open discussions about them and then figure out if that's possible. This, again, also has not gone through any sort of legal review on that. And there's a couple things too that I've had a chance to look at a little bit closer that I'll cover this a little bit more later after being present Sunday. I think there's room possibly to ask for additional skill sets that, I think there's, I learned a lot. I'll cover some more there in a little bit, but there's a way to, I think, probably attract team members that might be similar to me, that want nothing to do with the water, but we might possess certain skill sets on shore that can provide value. And so I think that we could possibly open this up a little bit more for providing some of those opportunities, because I think there's a lot of people that could serve and help that otherwise may not have either a physical capability to do so with some of the strenuous activities that take place, or just a simple aversion to the activities themselves. But like I say, I'll cover some more of that here in a little bit when we go over through just the dive team update. But I learned a lot Sunday that I think could be put to use in this application.
And right along with what you're saying there was a paragraph added to the SOP to cover a dive team auxiliary, and they could probably fall in that role and be more beneficial.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improving on this to include that last paragraph of getting a review is, do we even have the ability to recoup cost of?
Yeah. I've seen it in other volunteer organizations where certain training is required beforehand, and we'll pay it. You stay 3 years and we won't charge you, and then they don't, and then you're just chasing bad money with good. Legal fees, is that even proper? A couple other questions I had. Can you obtain a physical from a physician stating you're physically prepared? Is that something that the county board is going to pay for? I mean, we're asking this person to volunteer. We're requiring them to have a physical. Is that something that,
It's traditionally been a requirement.
are we going to compensate the person or no?
The physicals just fall in to divers. Divers are required to have an annual physical. Not so much shore responders. that kind of thing. And we've never, during the application process, said, okay, you gotta go get a physical. It's when they want to start diving, that's when they've got to have a physical. And that, in the long term, covers, the team covers the county, because if somebody has some type of lung issue or something like that, the first time they get in the water, and that could present an issue.
I absolutely understand the need for it. I'm just curious if that's something that in the past we've compensated for, or do the
We
divers just accept this is what I'm getting into?
We haven't compensated for it. At one point in time, we actually had one of the team members, his dad was a doctor, and he took care of it for us.
Oh, I understand.
So there was no cost to that.
I understand.
But at this point, no.
And then if I may continue, is it customary that they're buying their own fins, masks, snorkel, and wetsuits?
They're not buying that stuff. The county provides that.
Oh, well then this last sentence needs to be changed or something.
Most of us buy our own mask. If we choose to, we buy our own mask and our own fins, because there's a lot of different variables out there of what's available. So a mask that fits my face may
Sure.
not fit your face very well. The fins, the way they're made, whether they're split fins, solid fins, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Over the years, we have all decided on our own to purchase our own fins.
Yeah.
But then as far as wetsuits, dry suits, regulators, full face masks, all of that other equipment is purchased by the county.
Well, on this first page, the last one says you understand that you must provide your own fins and stuff, and that kind of threw me off, because I was like, I bought my own gloves for fire department, but I certainly didn't buy the helmet or the turnout gear. So that may be something that we need to
Sure. Like I
address
said,
that.
That's what it's here for. It's for discussion and review.
And as long as I absolutely appreciate the certain things that fit you better than the next guy. I get that. I would want to make sure, and I'm sure he is probably signing off on that. I wouldn't want someone buying something that the commander didn't approve of or whatever, and then them getting hurt or something. That I'm sure that's taken care of. But yeah, I think that's it. So
And we'll continue to chip away on that. Like I say, I've got a couple of things that I'd probably like to see, possibly even to help with the auxiliary piece to that, or you could just add that too. But there's a lot of opportunities that exist.
sure.
And then we'll get it, like I say, on the other language, we'll get a legal review and figure out what exists and what we need to take out.
You have an equipment, but a budget, in your budget, you have an equipment line, right?
We have an equipment maintenance line, there was a utility line, and a training line.
So that this could be under equipment, and if you think you need more equipment, I would suggest that when we start the budget here, probably July or something, maybe up that a little bit in case there
Well,
needs to
that's-
be more stuff.
That's typically in the past, I would submit a
I'm
budget.
thinking it's like $2,000 right now, but
What's $2,000?
maybe that was the corner. I looked at the corners thing, they asked me about something, and their equipment was $2,000. I don't know what you can buy for $2,000, but.
Our total budget, all three of those line items together, was $21,000.
Yeah.
And that was just recently that I checked, so.
So we could possibly increase that budget.
You know, the other thing, with the ARPA money that we have, if there would be anything that they would need as far as equipment and stuff, I would think that it could be purchased out of the ARPA money. If there's, anything as far as equipment, we've bought equipment for other departments and stuff, so I would think that, if there's something, more expensive than what your budget would allow and stuff, if you would bring it here and discuss it and stuff, that's a possibility till the end of the year. That money has to be earmarked by the end of the year.
Anything else on the application? Okay. We'll move on to discussion of the compensation for insurance coverage. We could be here for hours. Based on this conversation, I touched on it just a little bit. I've had conversations over the past couple of weeks with insurance. The very last email that I received, which I sent another reply last night, boiled down to as long as the members received a W-2 from the county, then they would be covered, which spurred a lot more questions for me. So those questions have been submitted. I'm waiting in return. So with that in mind, some of the discussions that we had, I think either last week or Sunday, whatever it was, is that if it's a requirement for a W-2, we have till the end of the year for that activity to take place at this point, because W-2 will be cut after the year. So exactly what that looks like yet, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. But the conversation is, it's very fluid. It's very fluid because the answers I get sometimes on the phone are not the answers that I get in writing. And so I am asking for a lot more in writing in return, just because that's the thing that we kind of hang our hat on. So if there's anything else to add to this conversation, I just want to let you know that that was my last communication, and I've got a reply that's out there, so waiting for more information back and some of my answers. So
And this was discussed before, what would met the guidelines for the compensation? Didn't we have a discussion about that?
well, so in my conversation on the phone, the conversation went similar to this: is $5 for training and $10 for a call out sufficient? The answer was no. It seems light. Okay, how about 10 and 20? I was like, well, that's better. So then to get an email back that a W-2 is required, IRS regulation states you're not going to cut a W-2 under $600. So how do we get to that?
And to your point, in any of the conversations I had with them discussing compensation, not one time did they say that the recipient, the DIVE member must have a W-2, because I'm no fool. And looking at the numbers over the last 3 years, that's not $600 per member. If anyone would have ever said they have to receive a W-2, I would have red flagged that right then and said, well, this isn't going to equal that. The other problem that I've looked at too, digging into this deeper, is the DIVE statute is void of allowing us the authority to pay them. So we've all heard, until we're tired of hearing, that if it doesn't say you can, you can't. So then insurance is telling we have to pay. State statute doesn't allow the provision to pay. It's going to take someone higher up the food chain than me to answer this question. And you heard the conversation that we had in the conference room. And the gentleman said, that will work. And now they come back and say, oh, well, you need a W-2. Well, that's not what he said then.
Right. So I guess bottom line with this conversation is to be continued until we get some answers. But it's going to take some very definitive, answers, and it's going to need to be in writing to make sure that we have done everything we can to protect the county, protect our members, and so the conversations will continue until we get some answers on that and some answers in writing. So
100%.
Anything to add to that? Anybody, any questions, comments?
Is the whole payment idea, that's a new deal? I guess since when? Because it always was, as long as, a volunteer was, part of the county, it was covered.
After the first resolution, and very direct to your question, it's a great question. After the first resolution was passed, I called CIRMA and I said, I've emailed you both, Rich and Chris, I've emailed you both the resolution. We are good to go, correct? And the response back was, everything looks good, we're just concerned about what you're gonna do about workman's compensation insurance. And I said, what do you mean, what I'm gonna do about it? Well, you're not paying them. You never told me we had to pay them. Well, if you don't pay them, then they're unpaid volunteers, which in the workers' compensation, I'm no workers' compensation guru. I don't know. The allegation was if they're not paid, they're unpaid volunteers, which classifies them equally as a contractor, independent contractor, requiring them to have their own workers' compensation insurance to volunteer for the county, which I think is absolutely foolish for us.
Yes, so how would this impact like the fire protection districts?
I'm paid $5 every time I go on a call. And that's in the code.
Yeah, but according to what was just said, there's no W-2 there, so that's not.
Correct.
Yeah.
But in 1970, whatever, that's what they said, and that's the way it still works. It's, and Mr. Mayhall and I discussed, maybe we just buy them all a small workers' compensation insurance policy. Maybe that's cheaper. I don't know. I just don't want, in absence of workers' compensation insurance, the only way that a member is made whole is to litigate the county. Or the county just pay whatever the person asks for. And I don't think that's right or fair to either party.
We as the county owe that too.
Correct. We owe them workers' compensation insurance when they're out doing what they're doing for 7 hours on a random Sunday. That's our responsibility. And if we force the members into a litigation situation, they're going to be forced to sue for 3 times what they would actually want or need to cover themselves. And I don't think that's fair. So that's where the compensation came from. And I'm excited that Mr. Mayhall is struggling with this just as bad as I was. It is very, I think you used the word squishy?
Squishy.
Yes, it's very squishy.
Can I ask one more question? If you're struggling with it, with the dive team, how about the rescue squad? I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Interesting you say that because they said that right now that they would consider them covered. It's in my email response that I'm asking for more answers. Yes.
A mountain of contradictions.
Yes, sir.
Indeed.
Tad,
Yes, sir.
can I just throw something in?
Sure.
So with workers' compensation, it is the Workers' Compensation Act. It is an act that is written, it's law, it's out there. And as I understand from emails going back, probably a year and a half ago now, or a year, the act does cover emergency responders, and I think specifically state law enforcement, rescue, fire. It states who is covered under that act. Unfortunately, that act does not specifically state dive, and therein lies the squishy and the gray.
Right.
So I think that's why rescue is not an issue. Fire, not so much an issue. First responder or law enforcement, not an issue. But dive, and as Sonny said, the dive statute doesn't address compensation, but I think that's the issue, is the way that the Workers' Compensation Act, which is state law, that's not the insurance, no insurance company is different than any other insurance company when it comes to those coverages, because it all goes back to the act.
Yeah, and that's what we're just trying to firm up. What does it take to ensure
Yeah.
they're covered?
I
Knowing that
think
there are
it's-
different provisions.
yeah.
I mean, I've read the stuff on fire and.
And I
so
think the
on.
act says if you're an unpaid volunteer, you're not covered. And that's where the conversations went with, if we pay them, even if it's a nominal amount, now they're not an unpaid volunteer, they're a paid volunteer, and that's what gains them coverage in the Workers' Compensation Act.
Right, but even at that point, it was, what does that compensation look like? And now we've gone down
Yeah.
3 different paths of what that could possibly
What
look
it looks like, yeah.
So-
But I think that's why rescue, to Teresa's question, is
I think so
covered.
as
It
well.
all
I
goes
think
back
there's
to the
provision
language of
in
the
that
act.
Specifically, as those other entities, it's just dive gets left out. So,
Martha, does that act state emergency services or just fire, law enforcement?
I would have to pull it up, Austin, and I'm happy to do that. If I go back to one of the emails from last June, July, August, in that very, very long thread that had multiple people on it, the work comp adjuster, claims adjuster, sent me the specific language. I can get that and share it. It doesn't just say rescue workers. I mean, it's very specific, and dive is not mentioned. But I can get that too, or, I mean, everybody's probably got it by now. It's out there in the public, but if anybody needs it, again, I've got it saved, and I can certainly send it to the Public Safety Committee for review again.
Ted, you want to look and check about whether technical rescue is included in some of these, because dive rescue is a subset of technical rescue. Technical rescue, the definition means rescue with specialized equipment, and that's where dive may fit under that. So if the language specifies technical rescue, we're kind of separating dive and rescue. I don't think they really have to be or are from a legal standpoint. Dive is a technical rescue. It's like there are high angle teams that work in the mountains for saving somebody who's fallen while mountain climbing. Those are technical rescue. Dive is underwater technical rescue. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for writing that up. I almost forgot, 'cause I think I mentioned that to you as well. Was looking at that act for something else, but I'll go back and review it for application of this. It's a very valid point. Thank you. I'm afraid to ask one more time. Anything else on this?
Well, the good news, as I see it, the good news, the paper that I passed out at the last board meeting was in writing, and it was from Trish, and it was from Rich, and it said that they are covered. As we move forward to make things simpler and better, I think it's good that I can do it, and hopefully the full board and the dive members can, knowing that at least we have one piece of writing that says they are currently covered. Now, as we walk forward, we can just make sure we don't step out of bounds where they're not covered.
Right, yeah. We'll get everything off solid ground soon. No more squishy. All right, I'm not asking anymore. I'm just going to move on to Sheriff.
Move on.
You have some updates?
Sure. We had a deputy that we hired in January. He reported to the academy there around January 1st. He graduated from the academy last Friday, but he'll begin field training now. He'll be in field training probably for approximately 3 months before he'll be on his own. Outside of that, the other update is we had an emergency meeting on the 22nd, declared that we had an emergency going on due to the windows falling out, and the fact that Utz and Associate, the architect, was also declared to be in default of their contract, so we can move forward. And so the next day, on the 23rd, I signed a project development agreement with Centrica. We had a Zoom meeting with them by Thursday of that first week, and they were here on site today doing a survey and bringing in some subcontractors already, starting to try to get some things worked out. One bad thing we found out, well, they expected it, but we thought we had it covered with our hazardous materials survey because there had been one done, and they thought it would cover it, but they went through all the documents today, and it did not reference the windows at all, so we'll probably have to pay for another hazardous materials survey, and anything, if we've got a remedy, any lead paint or anything like that, that'll have to be done first before they can move on.
Is a part of that any sort of air quality survey or test?
I'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah, and if not, maybe we can order it.
Okay. So before you came up, we had a request to
Right.
see if that's possible.
Yeah.
So, if it's possible, if that's in that bundle, that would be great as well.
I know the Centrica is doing a complete energy audit, including the HVAC systems, and they're looking at those also to possibly make recommendations for any changes they see that would benefit us.
Okay. I ran into Centrica folks today at lunch that
Yes.
recognized me for some reason. I'm not sure what they've been watching, but they did stop me at lunch with my daughter today. So it was good to see that they were in town. So thank you, sir. Animal control sent out updates. Everybody had a chance to read those or have any questions about those? Did you have a chance to read it?
Yeah, I did.
Dive team updates.
Before you move on,
Oh, yes,
did animal control give anybody the bills?
So I worked with Ms. Miller,
Mhm.
and they are going to go directly to finance.
Okay.
Back to that sheriff's update, I've heard this hazardous survey thing multiple times. I don't have a clue what it is or how much it costs. Do you?
So correct me if I'm wrong, it's abatement and making sure that when they do start taking things out, that they know what they're
Around the asbestos, lead, anything hazardous to the workers, so.
Okay. Is that expensive?
It can be, though Citrica said they're sending me some resources and they think that we can get it done for a few $1,000s. And when we got it back in 2012, it was a lot higher than that then. So they had no idea why it was so high.
10, 20?
Well, it was, I don't know. I don't want to say what
Okay.
it was, but I want to say 12
Okay.
is what we paid for it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Were they gonna do anything with the stucco?
As of yet, no. They have not came up with a plan on that. They're concentrating on the windows right now. So.
We'll move on to dive team updates. If you have some stuff, I'll let you go first because you got some things to say.
Well, you can go first.
No, sir.
I don't care.
No.
Touch on the call on Sunday just a little bit. Got to commend these people. Been out of this for 9 months. They jumped in, they got the job done. They knocked it out of the park. Some of you that were there that had the opportunity to see the process that we go through on a call, sometimes can be a very daunting task. You know, the conditions, the choppiness of the lake, the wind, all of that, all played a factor into our sonar work. Just, you know, we were up against several things that, and they jumped in. One of the other things that, you know, was a little bit of hiccup, we're down one truck. You know, Scott hooked one of the boats onto his personal vehicle and pulled it to the lake. It's probably something we need to make sure that's covered with insurance if we're going to be doing that. But once again, they did a great job. Effingham County came in, they did the diving part of it because we've got regulators, full face masks, some equipment that has to go out for annual inspection and annual rebuilds. Did discuss with a gentleman up at Bloomington about the regulator rebuilds today. He needed a little bit more information before he could give me a price on what it's going to take to do it. Obviously, just about anywhere you go, it's going to be about the same price. It's something that's got to be done. So that's in Bloomington. They don't do the full face mask. Full face mask will have to go to Plainfield, Illinois, which will just get shipped up there, and they'll do the rebuilds on them and make sure everything's working like it's supposed to. Other equipment, as soon as we got back into the station, boat batteries were dead. There's going to be, Finance Committee will see a bill for almost $500 in batteries, for 2 for the Danny K sonar and 2 for the sonar equipment. Other than that, everything seems to be functioning like it should. We're going to have to figure out fuel sooner rather than later. I had a chance to speak with Brian. Brian told me as far as gas goes, yes, he can get us set up, and told me how to start that process so we can get gas. The command truck's diesel. Out at the highway department, that diesel pump is not set up the same way as the gas pump. The only time we'd be able to get diesel out there is during their normal operating hours, because after they leave for the day, there's a switch inside that they turn off. I talked to Michael Tappendorf about that also. So they shut that off. I mean, maybe it's a possibility that, you know, they can give us a contact number that somebody would respond, but, you know, we've got a call that runs till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're trying to get things fueled up before we put everything away so it's ready for the next call. I'm sure somebody's not gonna wanna be woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go out there and get fuel. And that's where the WEX card we had before, I don't know if that account is still open. There was a card in each vehicle, and it was just for fuel. That's all you could purchase with it. We get fuel anytime. The statements are very clear. Each member had their own PIN number. They put their PIN number in. It identifies who they are. They put the card is attached to the vehicle, so when they stick that card in the reader, it says, you know, this is the command truck. So you know who pumped the fuel, how much it was. Statements can be pulled anytime. Can all be pulled online. When I set that up, I was set up as the admin. Erica had a login where she could see it anytime. Jessica had a login where she could see it anytime, so they could pull information from it. To me, that is a better option than the highway department. The convenience of it, and the fact that we never know where we're going to be and when we're going to be there. If we get called for mutual aid in Effingham and we need fuel, you know, I don't think any team member should have to buy the fuel and then get reimbursed for it. So that's where that WEX card, I feel, would be a better option. There was a little bit of a hiccup with the dispatching, which I think I've got that squared away. When we got back on that Friday, I got the Active 911 set up, which is an app that's on our phone that we can be paged out through. Yes, we have voice pagers also, but voice pagers only extend so far. If you're out of town, you're not gonna necessarily get something where the app, you'll get it through there. They didn't page out through the Active 911 with that call. I got on the radio to find out what was going on with it. They got things squared away. But when I initially got it all set back up, I had them send out a test page, and it worked. So I don't know for sure what the issue was on Sunday. Maybe it was a dispatcher that hadn't been made aware yet. I don't know, but it's working now. So. You saw the SOPs there, you know, read through those. Part of that is SOPs that we've had for years. Some of it's stuff that's been added. So that's obviously a fluid document right now to look at, and be glad to take any suggestions or thoughts on that so we can get that moving forward. The same way with resolution. I think that's all I've got. Anybody got any questions about anything I've said thus far? Sonny?
I do. Do you know what Active 911 costs? And is your department responsible for that, or is that
$252 a year for the number of devices that we have.
$252?
Yep. And it's per device. You know, the more devices you have, the more it costs. But once you hit a certain amount, then the actual cost per device goes down a little bit. But for us, it's $252.
Are you happy with that? Dissatisfied with that? Have you looked at anything else?
For the most part, I don't have any complaints about it.
Does it work well? Okay.
Yeah, and the app actually has just like some of the fire text response and everything, you know, there's a place where if they're not available, they can respond right on the app. If they're not available, I can see that you know, I know going into it what help I'm going to have, and do I need to pick up the phone and get another county started this way.
Is this for a pager now? Is that what you're talking about?
It's an app on the phone, on our phone.
It's on your
phones.
personal phone?
Yes.
Then?
Yes. And the app doesn't cost anything to the team members. It's to have it operational. It costs so much per device, and it's $252. It costs us $252 a year.
Okay. The WEX card issue and stuff, can they get those cards back? If they were in vehicles prior to this, is there a way of, if they need to have them reissued, can that be done?
We have to explore this and work on it for sure, and I think that, so we've talked about, the gas, the primary possibly being the highway department, for gas, if they're here.
Yeah,
But
if they're not,
there's chances where they're not, and, the diesel being, conditional based on, work time hours during the week, for diesel in the command vehicle, or again, providing mutual aid, or being in a different part of the lake, provides logistic challenges for fuel access, and, to have somebody run a vehicle all the way back to here, it doesn't make sense. And so having access to fuel through this service, instead of having individual credit cards being used, makes the most sense.
I'm very much against anyone having to pay for something and then be reimbursed a month later. I think that's absurd. If the person wants to do that, that's fine, but yeah, I definitely think the WEX card needs to be explored. And
Now, you mentioned you were short a truck, or you just had one broke down, or just,
Well, the F-150 that we used to have was deemed surplus equipment, so
but you actually used it?
yes, we actually used it. There was some work that needed to be done on the front end of it. I don't feel it was unsafe to travel down the road, but we didn't feel it was worth the money that was going to have to go into it to get it fixed. We were looking toward, purchase of a new vehicle to replace it.
that's why I was wondering whether or not you needed a new truck, or if you just had one broke down. I've been both places.
Me too.
Anybody else for Austin?
I would just like to say, I was one of those people that went to the beach area to watch. I didn't even know I was going to get involved, but I'm glad I did, because I saw firsthand what all of you people did. It was like you didn't miss a beat. Mark showed up, he went right ahead and did what he had to do. Scott showed up a little bit later, he knew what he had to do. Scott took care of the family, which I mean, to me, that just broke my heart that he spent all that time with the family. So I got to see things that I didn't know that the dive team did. Tad and I talked to the commander of the Effingham team, and he expressed how much passion this dive team has. He said, you have one of the best dive teams in the state. And he says, I have a good dive team, but I don't have the passion that these guys have. Or I should say, not guys, the dive team has. I thought that was a great compliment. While I'm sitting in the command truck just watching what's going on, seeing everybody go and do about their job, the only thing I felt I could do was to have a prayer with those divers, and that's what I did, and I think they appreciated it. And then I watched them, all that they went through. Anyway, it was an eye-opener for me. I'm glad I went and got to see. I'm probably going to be an auxiliary dive team member. Yeah, I can serve pizza and drinks. So yeah, so it was a great experience for me. I hated that it happened. I hated the family, what they had to go through. If anybody would see, what were there, 6 of them, 6 or 8? The parents had to come back. They were called. They left and they came back. But the wife's mother, their friends, the 7 hours that they spent in that parking lot waiting for their family member to come up out of the water. I mean, it was, your heart just broke for them. And that's where Scott Inkoff was their liaison there, assuring them. That was his job. But anyway, I'm very proud of this dive team.
You don't have anything over there? Do you have anything?
No, you can, go ahead.
I showed up on Sunday. I've been a part of a lot of high-functioning teams through my life. But what I saw Sunday was a different level. The coordination, the structure, the quick-to-act mentality. There were things that I learned that I didn't know existed in a team like this. Carol mentions Scott being a part of just being the family liaison. His job was to walk around and be with that family and constantly communicate difficult news. To be a part of that. The level of compassion, the level of empathy. I don't know. You either got it or you don't, and that's tough. But I never really thought about those jobs, being a part of this team, the protection of privacy. The barrier of vehicles to protect, and preserve the privacy of what was going on. The logistics piece, making sure that there was always what needed to be there on the spot. Spouses, showing up with food and water and just in welfare checks for this. The orchestration, the coordination, but the ultimate level of care and respect for this process. It was amazing to witness firsthand. I've said it time again, I'll say it again. I don't want anything to do with being a part of the water, but knowing that some of these other things exist, and that's why I say we look at the application. You talk about an auxiliary, tons of capable people in this room to do some of those jobs. And to be a part of that process and to find a way to give back. And, you can look at your app and know that you've got a green check mark, across the board on everything that can be fulfilled. But I think there's a place for so many more people to be a part of these processes that I was personally unaware of. So I want to thank all of you for what you do. It opened my eyes a lot. The impact for me, the biggest impact for me was just the care of family, making sure that the family was cared for and talked to and that's tough, Scott. I can't see him, I can see his head. But thank you for that. It spoke volumes to me and for what you do. And so my level of appreciation was already, it existed. It's at a whole new level. And so I'll tell you this, that my job is to protect you going forward, right? Any naysayers, anybody that has any issues, I'm in front of you now, right? Come see me first, and I'll talk to them. And but I'm with you after that. So thank you. Any old business? Any new business? All right, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Carol makes a motion, second.
Second.
Sonny? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Tom just did, he wanted to go bad.